Hi guys, I'm Anita and I'm back with another video. Today I want to share with you a mid-month wrap-up about the things that I've been reading up until the 15th of June. The first week of June I read only one book, but the second week I finished 5 books, so in total I've been reading 6 books in the first 15 days of June. So let's get into the books that I read and my thoughts about them and my ratings. The first book that I finished was Gullstruck Island by Frances Hardinge. This is a standalone book. It is also a TV unwrapping that I unwrapped a while ago. I don't remember exactly when I unwrapped this one. It is a sort of magical, fabulous type of book. Set on an island. Honestly, I just never really connected to the story at all. After I finished it, I am sad that I spent so much time reading it because I wasn't enjoying it and I should have just DNF'd it. I need to be better at DNFing books that I don't really enjoy and spend my time reading books that I'm actually enjoying instead. But I ended up pushing through this one and I ended up giving it 2 stars, I think, and I have a hard time remembering exactly what happened in it because it was just not memorable to me. It did have some magical aspects to it, and this is the second book I read by the author and none of them have impressed me so far, so I think it's the last one I'm going to be reading from the author in the future. Because I think it's just not her writing style and her storytelling ways is just not my kind of style, but I know a lot of people really enjoys it, so this is not a thing where I am saying that no one should read it, because I definitely think it has its audience, it's just not me. The second book that I read was Stamped from the Beginning, The Definitive History of Racist Ideas in America, which is a non-fiction book written and told and narrated as well by Ibram x Kendi. This I obviously started after all of the events happened in America in terms of George Floyd's murder and all of the demonstrations and the police brutality and everything that is happening still, and it's very important, and I realized how much more important it is for me to actually start reading some non-fiction about this topic. I never really read non-fiction in general. I find it to be a really difficult genre to pick up because I feel like when I pick up a non-fiction, it usually is as if I'm picking up a textbook for school, and I don't want my reading to be as if I'm going to school again. I want my reading to be fun and enjoyment and escapism. I'm much better at consuming non-fiction stuff or not real stuff, real life things in TV documentaries or something like that. So I watch it on TV instead. I love historical documentaries that talks about things that has happened in the world. So for me it was a bit of a challenge actually picking up this book. I did end up enjoying it, and I do find that it's very, very important and has its merit. However, I still stand by the fact that I think this was very, very textbook-like, because the way that it's told is just very, especially like the first bit, is very just like numbers thrown at you, like different events that happened throughout your life, throughout your life, throughout history. And they just mention a year and a state and what happened, and then go to next and state the same again. And it's really difficult, especially if you are listening to an audio, as I was doing, to remember and all of it sticking so that you know exactly when things happened. I found it easier when we got further into the history or further into the timeline to follow along, because also it spent a little more time on the subject so that it wasn't just like 2 to 3, 4 sentences about this specific time. And I think that is my main issue I had with it. However, because of its importance and because of how informative it ended up being and how much I was immersed in the whole book as a whole, I did end up giving it 4.5 stars. So I definitely do recommend it, and I think it's a really good place to go. Maybe I wouldn't suggest it being the first because it's really long, but I do think that it's a book that should be a requirement to read or something on the subject, because I think it definitely touches on a lot of problematic things that happened in the history in terms of racism and stuff. Okay, let's go on to the next one. The third book that I finished was The Girl in the Tower by Katherine Arden. This is the second book in the Winter Night trilogy. The Winter Night trilogy is set in Russia in very long time ago. It's a sort of alternative history type of fantasy. It follows this girl called Vasha or Vasilisa. She has a lot of names, and Vasilisa is able to see spirits and talk to spirits, and also talking to animals. She is looked at strangely because of what she can do, and she has a new stepmother who is trying to change her and put her into a convent, but she is not really having it. So yeah, I did really enjoy the second book. It's difficult talking about the second book and the plot of it without spoiling the first one, so I'm not going to go into any details. However, I did really enjoy it. There was in this one, she had a horse that I just really enjoyed. The whole, like, the bond that she had with that horse. It was just really well told, and I enjoyed that. And I did really enjoy it. I think that the atmosphere is captured very well in the story overall, and I am looking forward to seeing how it will turn out in the last and final book. I ended up giving this book 4.5 stars as well, just as well as the first one, because I did really enjoy it, and I think it's on par with the first one. Yeah, so I definitely do recommend this trilogy still. The fourth book that I finished was Heksejerns Lærling, or The Spooks Secret by Joseph Delaney. This is the third book in the Last Apprentice, or the Wardstone Chronicles. This is a series that follows this boy called Thomas, I think, and he is the 7th son of the 7th son, meaning that he is the last apprentice. He has magical abilities, he's able to see spirits, he's able to see things that aren't there, and he's being taught the skill of being a spook, and becomes the last spook apprentice in this world. Lots of things has happened since the first one, so I can't talk about the specifics that happens in this book. However, I did enjoy it, but I think the villain wasn't very well portrayed in this one. I don't think I like the villain enough, and I think it dragged down my overall rating, because I think that the villain was didn't have enough nuance to me in terms of why he was doing the things that he did, but I did end up enjoying it mostly, and I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. Yeah. The fifth book that I finished was Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. This is the third book published by the author. All of her books has been in a sort of different format. The first book was written in poetry form, The Poet X, and the second book and the third book has been written in verse. All of the books has been narrated by Elizabeth Acevedo herself, and she does a really good job in capturing the emotional impact that the stories have. This book follows two perspectives. It's two girls with the same dad, and that dad is on an airplane that crashes, and after that happened, they both find out that they share a father, and sort of the difficult situations that brings along, in terms of how do they react to it, how do they accept the fact that their father had a different life, that they had a different daughter, and how do you want to start getting to know that person? Do you want that other person in your personal life? All of those struggles, and as well as obviously grieving and the process of grieving over a lost parent, about how can you be angry with a parent that is gone, about something that they hadn't shared with you, and all of these things. Where do you put your anger after they are gone? Yeah, it was just so emotional, impactful. I don't think I talked enough in my vlog about this book, and how good it was, and how emotional it was. I don't know what's leaving me from giving it 5 stars, but it is definitely my favorite book that I've read by Elizabeth Acevedo so far, but I did end up giving it 4.5 stars. I think maybe the ending could have been a little better. I think it was a little bit abrupt in terms of the whole thing, and I would maybe, if that had been a little better, I would have given it a full 5 stars. However, I highly recommend Elizabeth Acevedo as an author. I think she does such a good job in writing these hard-hitting books. It's just so well written and so well told, and the narration of the audio is amazing. She has a really good voice, as well as just the fact that it's written in verse. You can tell that the way that she is telling the story, that it's sort of the process of telling it, it just gives a completely different atmosphere. So highly recommend this book, and hope that you will all check it out. The last final thing that I'm going to be talking about today is called Darkside by Tom Becker. This is the first book in the series called The Darkside. It follows this boy called Jonathan, who is a boy, and he has a dad who is admitted to hospital. He has been admitted to hospital multiple times because of some mental health problems. He is not able to take properly care of himself, and he forgets about Jonathan, the boy, and there's something about him. He talks about things that no one else can see, and all of that. So there's a lot of things in terms of his health and mentality that means that he is put to the hospital. But when it happens, Jonathan decides that he can still stay at home while he's there, because he usually is on his own, because his father doesn't really take care of him, because he is in a different state mentally than he is. So he decides he can take a day without him in the house, and he just starts exploring the house and finds some secrets about his own mother that he didn't know about, as well as talks about a secret place that's part of London, that is a sort of parallel world set in London, called Darkside. And in Darkside is where all of the nightmare stuff happens. It's filled with different nightmarish creatures, and it definitely takes Jonathan on a trip, because he ends up having to go to Darkside to find a man that knows his father, and he has to help him in terms of his father and his mother, and sort of this whole thing. And it definitely was interesting. I read it so fast. It was like a couple of sittings, because it's like 250, but the text is really large. And yeah, I did enjoy it. It was dark, it was quite twisty, and I think I've come to the term to give this a 4 out of 5 stars. I did really enjoy it, and I am looking forward to reading on in it. And I thought that the creepy vibes really added to this book, but there is definitely things that could change, that could happen in the future books, that could make the story better. But I did end up enjoying it and find it fun, and I'm happy I read it. I hadn't heard of it before. I discovered it at the library. So those are the all of the books that I've read in the first half of June. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of the books that I've been talking about today. What have you been reading recently? Are there any books that you'd like to recommend to me? Also, let me know about that. And if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video very soon. Bye!